Once again, yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy, Sports and Fitness Rants? I'm back, guys. Click that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. And welcome to another Sunday live edition. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, I'm by myself today. There's not going to be any Czar the video footage today. We are going to react to some of the Czar's video footage that he's been putting out recently. But no AOAs today. It's just going to be me, ladies and gentlemen. So once again, you guys know the deal, man. You guys know what it's about. Setting the record straight, stopping the lies, stopping the narratives, stopping them from rewriting history, y'all. Once again, man, I want to thank you guys, man. Everyone across the world, everyone across the states that's been continue to support my channel. You guys know I am truly, truly humbled. And you guys know what to do, man. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos, these lives are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So, yes, like I said, it's just going to be me today, ladies and gentlemen. Man, me and the Czar, we've been having some problems on Sundays trying to get linked up. You know, Czar's, he's a busy man, the AOH. So shout out to AOH. And like I said, all the work he continues to do. I know you guys have probably been checking out his work over there on the Patreon. I believe he's been putting a lot of stuff out there on the Patreon. So shout out to AOH and everything that he does. But yeah, it's just going to be me today, guys. And like I said, we haven't been hitting these Sunday lives lately. And I really wanted to do a Sunday. I like doing the Sunday lives. I know you guys like the Sunday lives. And I'm an early morning kind of person. So I wanted to do an early morning live, man. So I know it might be really, really early for some of you guys. You know, it's 10 a.m. over here in the East Coast. So good morning to everybody out there, or good evening, you know, whatever it may be. But I wanted to just do some reaction. I wanted to do some, like I said, some rants on some of the NBA or the NBA season thus far. We're about a month into the season right now. Teams have played about 14, 15 games or so. And there were some topics that I wanted to talk about out here today. So I wanted to do a live. I don't know how long we're going to go. We're going to go until we go. So shout out to all you guys who continue to come through and support the live streams. Once again, man, shout out to my man Bobby. Shout out to my man Dakota LaReed Brock for coming through as always. Thank you to my man Sleep Paralysis Draymond. Shout out to you. Shout out to my man Chase 1738, Lynette 42, aka Renee. Shout out to you. Laney Music 8990, Top Dog 2916, Dangerous Captain Charisma. My man Chip Ferguson in the building. Callie Young, Rap God Reloaded, The Rap Machine 87. My man TG coming through. Armand Smith, my man Stebby J, Falcons 2123. Yo, shout out to all you guys to continue to support the lives. Like I said, it's just going to be me today on this Sunday. So I hope you guys will still stay with me, even though AOH won't be here. But in the spirit for AOH, like I said, we're going to react to some of AOH's stuff. And I wrote down a couple of topics here that we're going to run down real quick. Just let you guys know some of the things that I want to talk about. And I want to ask you guys' opinion on some of these topics, man. So I want to talk about Chris Paul's retirement. We just heard that Chris Paul has announced his retirement after the season. So I want to touch on the Chris Paul retirement news. So shout out to Tanya Richards. Shout out to you. Thank you for coming through. I wanted to talk once again about how the load managing with the star players has gone too far. Like my man Eddie Murphy said in Golden Child, it's gone too far, man. Right? So we're going to talk about the load managing. We're going to talk about some of the free throw stuff that's been going on in the NBA because of some of the rule changes that's been going on. I want to talk about who we think the top player in the NBA is right now. Who do you guys think the best player in the league is right now? I want to know, and we could talk about who the best team in the NBA right now is 15, 16 games into the season, or wherever, like I said, we're a month into the season right now. We're going to talk about Kevin Durant and Kevin Durant riding the bus. Kevin Durant riding that damn bus. Well, I tell you, Kevin Durant, man, it never fails from Kevin Durant. And like I told you, what he's doing right now, or what he's attempting to do right now, as far as his impact on the Houston Rockets overall, this man's out there riding the bus. We're going to talk about Kevin Durant. We're going to talk about Draymond Green's comments, the back and forth with Kenyon Martin. And I saw he had a response to Kenyon Martin, which I don't understand. His response doesn't make any sense to me at all. I wanted to also, like I told you guys, react to some of AOH's last couple of videos. And we'll talk about LeBron James, the Lakers, and LeBron James' return. We'll talk about that at the end. We want to mention that. I want to talk about Will Chamberlain archive. Shout out to my man over the Will Chamberlain archive. It's been a long time since he dropped the video. He dropped a couple really good. Once again, he's a historian. All right, the guy over at the Will Chamberlain archive, right? He's not just some fool out here yelling on a microphone and, you know, giving you some weird takes. You know, once again, so shout out to the Will Chamberlain archive. Like I said, a true historian of the game. All right. So you guys should go out there and check some of his stuff out. Listen to what I said, but we're going to react to some of the things that he was talking about in his video. So, like I said, once again, shout out to everybody out there. My man DC33, Newman 824, what's going on? Like I said, thank you guys for coming through. Troy Black, thank you very much. It's just going to be me today, guys. And like I said, there were some topics that I want to talk about today. I went over a couple of things. Like I said, and at the end, we'll talk about the LeBron James return and how he conveniently came back right when the Los Angeles Lakers got – how many days off they got now? They got like 4 days off after the Utah Jazz game. And who do they play when they come back from that 4-day break? Utah Jazz once again. So it never fails. LeBron James and his calculations out there. Thank you very much. Like I said to all you guys, man, that continue to come through. Shout to Top Dog. So, let's start. Like I said, let's start with the Chris Paul stuff. Let's start with the Chris Paul announcing his retirement. Yo, Austin Casey with us. Shout out to Austin Casey for coming through. Let's start with the Chris Paul stuff and Chris Paul announcing his retirement, because I thought that was interesting that he announced it when he did. Not necessarily before the season, but like a month into the season. So let's talk about Chris Paul real quick, because I think Chris Paul's obviously, I think, a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think anyone will deny Chris Paul being a first ballot Hall of Famer. One of the true point guards, one of the great point guards in the history of the game. And, I've mentioned Chris Paul on my channel many times, and you guys kind of know how I feel about Chris Paul. I feel that he's become, I don't think he's overrated necessarily, but I think that people are misremembering Chris Paul to a degree. And they've put him into a realm, where maybe they misremember or forget some of the other great players at the point guard position. So sometimes when I hear people say that Chris Paul is a top 5 point guard of all time, I do not believe that to be a true statement. I do not believe that Chris Paul is a top 5 point guard of all time. And it's not necessarily a knock on Chris Paul when I say something like this, or if we say that. What that goes to is the greatness of the point guard position in the history of the NBA and the players that played that position. I mean, we're talking about some legendary players that have played the point guard position in the history of the game. So to me, I cannot put Chris Paul as a top 5 point guard. To me, like I said, he's probably a top 10 point guard in the history of the game. And I told you, even that to me is a stretch when you think about some of the great point guards. And I've told you guys, to me, New Orleans Hornets Chris Paul, that dude was probably a top 5 all-time point guard in the history of the game. Because, I mean, the things that dude was doing in New Orleans, a shout out to Cali Young for mentioning New Orleans, Chris Paul. I mean, the things that Chris Paul was doing on that team with guys like David West, a young Tyson Chandler and David West, like I said, when these guys were coming into their own, Chris Paul was really making these guys look really good. I think Rasul Butler was on that team, if I'm not mistaken. I can't necessarily remember, but they had some guys on that team, some young players. And I remember in that 7-game series against the San Antonio Spurs, man, Chris Paul was sensational in some of those games. Like I said, even though they lost in 7 games to that Spurs team, Chris Paul, to me, was maximizing all those guys around him. So at that point, to me, I think Chris Paul was at his best. When Chris Paul went to the LA Clippers, he was still really good. But to me, he lost some of the, I don't know if it was like his swag or something, or there's something was missing. It seemed like he had more of an aura or a swag in New Orleans. Like I said, where like it was almost like you were scared of him in the postseason in some of these scenarios. And when he went to LA, it almost seemed like, how many times in LA did we talk about these guys blowing a lead? Remember, they were up 3 games to 1 against the Houston Rockets, I think it was, with James Harden and Dwight Howard. Remember, they were up like 3 games to 1. Shout out to him, 213. Shout out to all you guys, like I said, for coming through, man. It's just going to be me today rolling with you guys, man. Shout out to Newman 824 once again. So, they were really good. Chris Paul and the Hornets. I thought like I said, they had a pretty decent squad. And Chris Paul, to me, like I said, when he went to the Clippers, there was always just something missing. He was either hurt, right, or they were choking it up, right? We were talking about Doc Rivers and what's up with these guys, man? Always blowing these series. So, when you think about Chris Paul overall, like I said, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the great point guards in the history of the game. Like I said, a true point guard, a pass first player, which is why when you look at his assist numbers compared to his turnover numbers, sensational. Chris Paul, where he is all-time rank-wise. We know he's played for a long time. So he's been durable to a degree, but he hasn't been durable in big moments. That's been the problem for Chris Paul over the last 10 years, right? So when we talk about, I'm not saying he's overrated, but he's misremembered. It's like I said, people are like trying to think about Chris Paul and put him in a realm where I think like the last 10 years of his career have kind of really hurt his overall start to his career, in my opinion. So to me, he's probably a top 10 all-time point guard, somewhere in that range. Like I said, when you think about the guys that are on that list, I mean, the great point guards, like I said, when you think about some of these guys, like I said, he's nowhere in the level of a Magic Johnson. You know, if we're going to put Steph Curry in a point guard conversation, he's not greater than Steph Curry. Isaiah Thomas, he's not greater than Isaiah Thomas or better than Isaiah Thomas to me, right? To me, Jason Kidd was better than Chris Paul. The Gary Paytons of the world to me, Oscar Robertson, I have to put above someone like a Chris Paul to me. So when you talk about some of the great point guards, like I said, Walt Clyde Frazier, Steve Nash, right? Some of these great point guards that are playing the game, Chris Paul to me, John Stockton, like, you're talking about in that kind of realm there. To me, he's in that next five or to me, the next tier after that. You maybe talk about like the Rajon Rondos down the line, the Russell Westbrooks, these kinds of guys that are in that, that lower tier of the top 10 type of point guards in the history of the game. Bob Cousy, like I'm not putting him above these guys. To me, those are the top five guys, like the Magic Johnsons, the Isaiah Thomases, Oscar Robertson, Bob Cousy, right? Steph Curry, Jason Kidd. To me, those guys were at a different level. Gary Payton. To me, those guys were head and shoulders above Chris Paul to me. So shout out to Chris Paul for the career that he's had. Like I said, one of the great players. Like I said, first ballot Hall of Famer, and he announced his retirement this season. Do you guys think that Chris Paul, I asked you guys out there in the chat, do you guys think that Chris Paul is a top 5 point guard? Yes or no? Shout out to Tony Parker, Rap God Reloaded. You're on the money. Tony Parker, I think Tony Parker is another guy, like I said, that's in these conversations here, man. Yeah, I don't. Right? No, I don't, yeah. A lot of you guys say no. I don't think that he's top 5 all time. Like I said, he's more to me a top 10 all time point guard. Chris Paul. But like I said, if you really think about it, like I said, I know I'm probably missing some guys if we really sit down and think about the great point guards and see, once again, this is not a knock on Chris Paul. Chris Paul's a great player. We're just highlighting the greatness of that position. So it's not like, oh, Chris Paul's not even a top 5 guy or a top 10 guy. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that some people are trying to put him in that category, and I don't believe that he's even close to a top 5 point guard in this game. Like I said, if you really think about the great point guards in the game. I think, I'm sorry if I missed super chat. Shout out to my man Top Dog for coming through with the super. I say Chris Paul was at his best in New Orleans, but him and Blake Griffin made the Clippers must-see TV in the Lob City era. Yes, absolutely. Top Dog, you're right in the money. Shout out to you. Thank you for coming through with the super. I absolutely agree with you on that. When we talk about Lob City, the fact that you remember that, right, and people know the name Lob City, right? It had a nickname, a moniker when they were there. Yeah, Blake Griffin, we all know that the injuries really derailed Blake Griffin and his potential overall, when he could have done perhaps maybe. But, this is what we talked about with the Clippers, right? Guys like DeAndre Jordan, right? They had a solid team. The Clippers were a good team. They were never a team to me that was one of the top teams. Like, they weren't winning like 65, games or something like that and have one of these crazy seasons. They were always like that next tier team. When you look at some of the series that they played and some of the teams that they lost to teams that were lesser than them. They lost to teams like the Memphis Grizzlies. I remember they lost to 1 year. I think that was like the 5 seed when they were the 4 seed. There was a couple years there, like I said, when they lost to teams that they were better than talent-wise. But like I said, injuries to guys like Chris Paul or an injury to a Blake Griffin, some of these other things would kind of derail their season. And we talked about someone like Doc Rivers and the things that would happen during Doc Rivers' tenure on the Clippers. So shout out to, once again, my man Top Dog for coming through with the super. Yeah, shout out to Mookie Blaylock. I see you guys out there throwing out some of these point guards' names. Shout out to Mark Price, one of the guys that we remember who's not in the Hall of Fame. That to me, was clearly a Hall of Fame type player. Like I said, if not for some of these injuries that had derailed his career. We think about some of you guys, but some of you guys we forget, like Maurice Cheeks, Mo Cheeks. So shout out to Mo Cheeks, who's a really good point guard. We think about those Philadelphia Sixers teams. So shout out to someone like Mo Cheeks. Shout out to like guys like Terry Porter. I told you guys, Kevin Johnson to me was always one of the guys that I thought should have been in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot, just based off of what I remember watching Kevin Johnson do on the basketball court. So once again, I said that Tim Hardaway got in. Like I'm like, how did Kevin Johnson not get in? And that wasn't a knock on Tim Hardaway. I was just saying, to me, Kevin Johnson was one of them dudes. Like once again, shout out to JL 1979 who throws out there tiny Archibald. So shout out to them. Yeah, you guys know the deal, man. Like I said, it's not a knock on Chris Paul to say he's not a top 5, like I said, or even a top 10 point guard. Like I said, when you go down the list of point guards, like I said, a guy like Walt Clyde Frazier, who I mention on this channel all the time because I'm from New York, and like I said, Walt Clyde Frazier is probably the most famous person that I ever met. I met Walt Clyde Frazier at basketball camp. But a shout to Walt Clyde Frazier, but Walt Clyde Frazier's two-way play, was like that. You know what I'm saying? He was one of them dudes, a lockdown defensive player. Like I said, a guy who dished the basketball and a guy who put the ball in the hole. So shout to Walt Clyde Frazier, a guy, like I said, who doesn't get mentioned very much. When we talk about these great point guards in the history of the game. So shout out to him. Once again, much respect to all you guys out there, man, for throwing out some of these names. I saw you guys throw a Tiny Archibald, like I said, another great player in the history of the game who doesn't get mentioned much. We have to mention someone like Tiny Archibald. So once again, shout out to all you guys for throwing these players' names out there. You guys know the deal. Like I said, it's not a knock on Chris Paul, man. He's a great two-way player. Like I said, one of the elite players in the history of the game, too. Like I said, a first-bout Hall of Famer for certain, Chris Paul. No doubt about it. Let's talk about something else that we talked about. We've talked about this a couple of times, but we have to continue to mention these kinds of things. And we have to talk about this whole, situation with the load managing, right? And how the load managing thing has gone too far. Because when we talk about someone like, we've mentioned LeBron James before, right? And the reason why we've talked about LeBron James and we've mentioned load managing and why it's a situation that's a problem is because I've told you guys, it's the great players doing it. It's the superstar players. So never mind LeBron James. But when we look at the NBA this season, we've seen it already. And it's like I said, this goes to what? Hand in hand with another topic that I want to bring up at the same time, and we can talk about both these situations, is the amount of blowouts that we've seen this season so far. Because this goes hand with what? Another situation that we've seen so far this season. And the amount of 40 and 50-point games that we've continued to see these NBA players put up. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that these guys scoring 40, 50-point games is necessarily always a bad thing for the NBA. People scoring points, guys putting on a show, whatever the case may be. But when we make points or when we're talking about past errors, and we're talking about a guy scoring 30, right? And we're talking about a guy averaging 30, let's say, people are not understanding how much that really means. Like, when we're talking about in contrast to what guys are doing today, that's what we're trying to highlight. It's not to knock these guys. What we're saying is look at what these guys are doing today because of what? XYZ, the things that we just mentioned before now, right? The amount of free throws that they allow these guys to shoot because these are touch fouls that you see on the basketball court now, right? We've seen these guys, like I said, load manage. So you're seeing teams and players competing against teams that are not even equipped to be out in the basketball court. Some of these games you've seen some of these YouTubers highlight this stuff. You go and look at the people who are out for that game. It's a laundry list of players. But everyone's out. The entire team is out. So how is your team supposed to compete when 4 or 5 of your guys are out and 3 of those guys are starters? Your team is going to get blown out. So now the other player's best team, or the other team's best player, is playing against a team with nobody on it. So you have situations like James Harden last night when he drops, 55 points or whatever he dropped on the Charlotte Hornets. And who do the Charlotte Hornets have on the basketball court? Is LaMelo Ball even playing? I don't even know if LaMelo Ball is even playing. So it goes back to the other issue. It all lends into each other, guys. It all kinds of, like I said, they all goes hand in hand. All of these scenarios, like I said, the guys with the load managing, it goes all hand in hand with the blowouts that we've seen, with the 40 and 50-point games that we've seen so far this season. So it takes away from the 40 and 50-point games. When you drop 40 in the 90s, it was like, damn, that was like dropping 60. It was like, yo, someone dropped 40. You couldn't believe it. Like I said, if someone dropped 30, it was like, damn, you dropped 30 because your team scored 90, right? Now, I told you the other day in the video that I did, you had Lauri Markkanen. No, not going Lauri Markkanen. I like Lauri Markkanen, man. Good play. The only problem that Lauri Markkanen's got is can't stand the court. Lauri Markkanen has never played 70 games in a season. So his only problem is his health. It's not his game or any kind of stuff. But I told you guys, he dropped 47 in one of those games the other night. His team scored 150. So if you're scoring 150 and you drop 47, yeah, it's impressive, but not to the degree that they're trying to make it seem. Oh, Lauri Markkanen drops 47. Yeah, no doubt. But the team scored 150. So when we think about, once again, the comparison to a guy or some of the guys back in the day scoring 30 or averaging 30, you think about what some of these guys were doing, like I said, in the 90s or in the early 2000s when the scores were really low. That's why you have to give them a little more respect and put a little more context behind this stuff. So yes, these guys are dropping all these points. They're doing all this stuff. But I'm telling you guys, anyone out there, you guys know. You guys tell me if I'm lying. Back in the day, if a guy scored 50, think about it. If a guy scored 50 in the 90s, think about how big of a deal that was. That was a huge deal. It was a huge deal, guys. A huge deal to score 50 in a game. Now, it's pretty much at a point where you really never know if whoever's going to score 50. Really, anyone could drop 50, right? You see Nikola Jokic could drop 50. His teammate Aaron Gordon could drop 50. You never know. Any one of these guys can come out and drop 50. I mean, hell, shout out to Tyrese Maxey. He's dropping almost 40 every night, it seems like. Every night, he's like on a whisker hair away from 40 points. 39, 37, right? And he's often over 40, dropping multiple games. So when we talk about some of these issues, and I've said it's gone too far, this is what we're talking about because people are not keeping the context and the perspective behind this. So this is what I'm talking to you guys a lot of times when people try to over-celebrate some of the numbers that are being put up. We're not giving proper context and perspective historically. So we're over-celebrating the numbers as if the guys putting up lesser numbers or not often, putting up these numbers as often, as consistently, is because they weren't as great. When in fact, it wasn't because they weren't as great, it's because the game that they played was a different kind of game. So when we compare these players and we talk about the eras that they played in, we can talk about what these players did compared to their eras and who did they compete against in their eras. Like I said, and what was going on here. Because like I said, if everyone is dropping 40 and 50, then it doesn't really make the top guys or the guys that you would expect to drop 40 and 50. When they drop it, it's like you would expect them, they should be dropping maybe 70. That's why I've often brought up someone like Kevin Durant. Where's Kevin Durant's 40 and 50 point games? Right? Now, we can talk about the Kevin Durant riding the bus scenario that I've talked about, because to me, this is a perfect example to highlight what I'm talking about. You're Kevin Durant. You're promoted and touted as the most skilled offensive player in the history of the game. That's a big, think about someone labeling you that way. A lot of people, Kevin Durant himself, has promoted himself as the god of basketball. So if you're going to wear that kind of, like I said, you're going to name yourself that, then we have to start looking at you a certain way. And when your career high is 55, that's not impressive to me. I don't see that. When other players have scored 70, like I said, guys that we think are lesser, the Donovan Mitchells or a Devin Booker, right? Some of these guys, but they'll tell us that guys from the past weren't as skilled. And yet guys like Elgin Baylor and the Pistol Pete Maraviches, right? These guys have scored more. Tom Chambers has scored more in a game than Kevin Durant. Karl Malone has scored more in a game than Kevin Durant, but these guys were trash. So when you think about what I just said, those guys putting up those kinds of numbers in those eras when they weren't that good, are skilled as Kevin Durant apparently, but his career high is 55. So it brings me to this season. You're averaging 25 points a game, and probably, in fact, even less now because he dropped 13 points the other day in a loss against the Denver Nuggets. So I told you guys what, whenever the Rockets were going to play against a good team, one of the contending teams, which the Nuggets are, then Kevin Durant's going to have to bring it. He'll have to bring it offensively. He ain't going to dominate the glass. He ain't going to dominate defensively because other guys are going to be there to bend their knees and slide their feet for him. You got guys like Steven Adams and others to rebound the ball. I told you guys, Steven Adams, the number one offensive rebounder in the league. The Houston Rockets, the number one rebounding team in the league. Not because of Kevin Durant, but because of the guys around him. So when you're riding the bus that way, in those moments, Kevin Durant needs to drop 30. He needs to drop 40. He needs to drop 50. You need to show us you are that dude. Because once again, they'll tell us that Michael Jordan only had to score, and that's what he did apparently. But Kevin Durant right now only has to score, and he can't do that. I told you, he's averaging the same as Norman Powell. And when I said that, that wasn't to knock Norman Powell because I've been pumping up Norman Powell. You guys remember on my channel last year. What I was highlighting was, how are you, Kevin Durant, averaging the same as Norman Powell is? That's insane. You should be averaging way more than Norman Powell right now. But I've seen guys like Lauri Markkanen who's damn near averaging 30 this season. Lauri Markkanen is averaging, 29.9 points a game or something like that? So once again, there's no knock on Lauri Markkanen, but Kevin Durant, damn, where the hell you at? All these other guys are dropping 40 and 50 every damn night. I told you guys, Grayson Allen dropped 40 and 50 in a game? Where's Kevin Durant's 40 and 50 point games? I mean, he should have like 3 or 4 already this season. Everybody dropped. Nikola Jokic just dropped, 40 again last night in a loss. So the 40-point games, like I said, are becoming a dime a dozen. So it loses some of the cachet. It loses some of the sizzle, man. It does, guys. Like I said, when Jordan's averaging 30, when he's averaging 30 in an era where it's almost impossible to average 30, no one else is really doing this except for guys like Dominique Wilkins, then yes, it's like, yeah, that's a big deal, right? Because like I said, when you think about some guys like a Karl Malone, for example, and you think about him or historically, Karl Malone was, if let's say Michael Jordan didn't play in his era, Karl Malone would have led the league in scoring like 6 or 7 times in his career. He was the run-up to Michael Jordan so many times. Dominique Wilkins too. These guys would have had 4, 5, 6 scoring titles if Michael Jordan wasn't there. They were putting up numbers like that. They were doing that, and they barely averaged 30, right? It wasn't like that. You couldn't do it. Michael Jordan was doing things that were insane to do, especially at that position. Now, you got like 7 guys averaging 30 now in the NBA. So, yes, I respect a lot of those players for what they're doing. But at the same time, we have to understand, like I said, when we're talking about historically is where we have the problem here. Because this is some bad basketball historically, right, that we're watching. So we have to think about that. These players are playing in that era. Yo, shout out to you guys, man. Once again, I know I've been rambling on, man, and talking crazy. So forgive me, guys, for just rambling, guys, and not shouting some of you guys out for continuing to come through. So like I said, thank you very much to all you guys that come through. But yo, I said the NBA's gone too far. The load managing, like I said, you turn the game and all the starters are out. Everyone's out. Sometimes for both teams, you got all the reserves playing against each other. So like I said, you have fans that show up to an arena thinking they're going to see somebody and they don't see nobody. They see no one. So it's one of those things where, like, when I told you guys, when I say that Michael Jordan don't owe me nothing, the players, I know I say that line a lot, guys, because it's important. They don't owe me because I told you the bare minimum that a player can do for the game, let's say, for the fans, is show up and play the game. That's the bare minimum that we need for a game. Bare minimum. If the players ain't there, I told you there's no game. There's no game without the players. And guess what, guys? Guess what? Guess what? Those guys showed up and they played the game. So we got to see the game. So that's what I'm telling you. They don't owe me nothing. I owe them for showing up, for playing through the personal problems, for playing through the sore ankles and the hurt wrists, right? And the stomach aches, right? And the cramps, right? They played through that stuff more often than not. These guys were not perfect. They didn't play 82 games every season, all these guys. Hell, some of these guys never played 82 games. But I told you, it was the willingness and the want to play the 82 games. So more often than not, we go back to that word consistency again. When I turned the TV on, them dudes was there. They were just there. So once again, what I'm giving you is what they allow me to give you because they were there. When people are like, oh, you got nostalgia. How am I going to have nostalgia about an era of players if they were never there? If they never showed up? If they did low match like this? If we're turning around now all these years later and I'm like, yo, man, Michael Jordan was like, yo, like 60 games a season. And he was like, yo, missing mad games. Like, you don't have that. Scottie Pippen, he was out there, man. They were both out there. Pippen and Jordan. They were both out there playing the game. When we talk about, oh, yeah, Larry Bird had all these guys, yeah, they're men. They were on the court. Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, them dudes was there. They were on the court. Like Larry Bird was playing through things. So they tried to show up more often than not. When we talk about, yo, this guy went against this dude. Yeah, because Hakeem was out there with Otis Thorpe. They were out there every freaking game. They were there. Oh, he ain't playing with no, but you knew the dudes that was on the team because they were there every night. So when you turned the game on, it didn't even matter if you actually knew who the other guys were. But because every time you turned the TV on and they were there, you remember the name Kevin Duckworth, right? He wasn't that great, but you remember him now. Why? Because every time you put on the Trailblazers, the freaking guy was there. Someone was there, right? You talk about Bill Laimbeer and this guy and that guy. They were there. There's no one there. You turn the TV on, they're not there. They're there every other time. Where every now and again, sometimes, or just not at all. Where's Zion Williamson at? Has anybody seen Zion Williamson? I don't know where's Zion Williamson at. You got John Morant out here yelling and crying and moaning yesterday with Klay Thompson. Dude, you're not even playing. And you're trash talking after the game with Klay Thompson. We're like, I don't understand where you are at. You have all the energy for that, but you're on the court. Dude, weak stuff here. Weird stuff from these dudes. LaMelo Ball, I really never mentioned him because he's LaMelo Ball. He's a little short of Hornets, but where's he at all the time? He's always hurt. Dudes are just missing. Like I said, I turned on a game and Chet Holmgren was out, and I was like, why is Chet Holmgren out? The dudes are just out. They're not there. They were there back in the day. They showed up. It's the facts, guys. I'm not lying about this. These are the facts that I'm giving you here. People think I'm out here lying. You guys know I'm telling you guys the truth. Yo, shout out to AC Green. Shout out to Patrick Ewing. Exactly. These guys were there, man. You know what's funny, man? They'll be like, yo, Patrick Ewing this or Patrick Ewing that. You got to knock Patrick Ewing. I told you, the one thing you cannot say about Patrick Ewing, the one thing you can't say about the Reggie Millers, the one thing you can't say about the Charles Barkleys, the Karl Malones, the John Stocktons, they'll be, yo, them dudes never won a championship, and they'll try to knock them for that. The reason why you can't knock them dudes for not winning a championship and say, yes, they didn't win a championship because of them, because they're not great, you can never say that about them because they brought it every single season. They competed. They didn't join Jordan. They didn't join each other. Then none of this stuff happened. They competed, man. So you respected them for going down swinging. Every year, Michael Jordan and the Bulls knew they were going to have to bring it to Patrick Ewing and John Starks and Oakley. They knew them dudes were going to be there. They wasn't going to be missing games. They wasn't going to be ducking the smoke. Oh, yo, man, let me sit out. Michael Jordan sitting out in the regular season. Imagine Michael Jordan with that mentality back in the day when he comes supposed to play Madison Square Garden. He's supposed to play the Knicks. It's a rivalry. How do you get a rivalry, guys? Why do you think there's no rivalries? Why do you think you have to be... You got to be on the court. You got to have a rivalry. You have to be on the court first and foremost. You have to be playing against each other all the time. It has to be bothering you that this damn guy keeps playing against you. And you guys keep losing to them. That's how you build a rivalry up. Like, there's no rivalry with the Knicks and the Heat if they're playing all the role players all the time because they're always out. Oh, yeah, Lonzo Mourning is never here, right? P.J. Brown's out all the time. Charles Oakley's never there. This guy's out. This guy's out. They're just always missing. There's no way to build up a heated rivalry, especially if you're ducking the smoke. If Michael Jordan's not showing up to Madison Square Garden, if he's not coming there to play the games, then how all of a sudden the New York fans going to feel a certain way about Michael Jordan? Right? How are they going to start feeling that way when they be like, damn, this guy keeps hitting these shots. He keeps dropping these games on us. You know what I'm saying? He has to be there to have those moments. Reggie Miller, how does Reggie Miller have this moment? How do you have that? Why does that moment matter even more? Why is it more iconic? Because it came in a rivalry, in a heated rivalry, in a big-time moment, right? That's what made it even greater. It's not just, oh, this guy was a great player and he did a great thing. It's also when he did that great thing, right? The moment, all of those things matter when we're talking about icon, when we're talking about these moments. Right? I mentioned that one time to you guys a while back, like a year or so ago, about Allen Iverson. And I told you guys, when Allen Iverson's iconic moment, when you think about his crossover, why is it a quote-unquote iconic moment? Not just because it's Allen Iverson, he's doing his iconic, legendary, his move, right? His signature move, so to speak, the crossover. It's because he was doing it against Michael Jordan. He did it against Michael Jordan. That's what made it iconic. He didn't just do the move. He did it against Michael Jordan, right? He was a young player. Michael Jordan was there. There was the moment. That's what added to it. So when we talk about these kinds of things and the guys missing games, like I said, the dudes load managing, you have someone like LeBron James out here acting like, oh, I'm going to sit out against the Milwaukee Bucks all the damn time. Like the Milwaukee Bucks are some crazy formidable team. The Milwaukee Bucks ain't been no juggernaut team over the last several years. You're just scared of one player. That's weird, man. You're scared of a player? You think Michael Jordan would have been ducking the smoke against the Pistons? We would have never had the Jordan rules because he would have never been in them games. He would have been, yo, I'm sitting out this one. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Then the next game would have came and he'd be like, yo, the next one, I'm going to be on the next one I'm going to play. I got you guys. Yo, remember, they played them dudes 6 times a season. 6 times in their division. That's the way it was set up. So when you're talking about playing against that team, people forget how it was 6 times every year you're going against these dudes, that they're beating on you, and then you got to play them again in the postseason. That's how you build up a rivalry. That's how things get heated. Dudes on the court. Those are the facts, man. I know I'm rambling, y'all, but, yo, these are the facts, man, for real. You guys know the deal, man. Like I said, yo, shout out to you guys, man. If I forgot your supers, man, let me get back to these supers real quick. I know I seen you guys drop a couple supers. Like I said, shout out to you guys. Shout out to my man, Stevie J. I'd rather watch the WNBA. Yo, you just reminded me of something, actually. Yo, you reminded me of something. We got to get back to that. Hold on a second here. Because you just made me think about something I wanted to touch on briefly. Shout out to the Lonely One for coming through with the super. Says salute, bro. Heard Draymond back. Pat Green is out here trying to be tough. Let's roll. Yeah, shout out to the Lonely One. I told you guys, I'm going to touch on Draymond Green. I heard a response. He responded to Kenyon Martin. Now, listen, you guys know I've had my problems with Kenyon Martin. It has nothing to do with his game, or it's not personal. It's more so about the things that he says about LeBron James and the Michael Jordan to me. Like I said, these guys are not consistent. That's my only problem with these guys, the consistency sometimes of what they say. But as far as what he said about Draymond Green, Kenyon Martin, we all know he was on the money with that stuff. I mean, my goodness, when he went down a laundry list, I'm wondering if Kenyon Martin is watching some of my videos. Because wasn't it me not that long ago that just ran off? I went up almost like 60 dudes on my list. Now, I didn't just relegate to power forwards. I relegated it to players, to me, that were not in the Hall of Fame. That should have been the Hall of Fame, even though some of them I believe should have been. But to me, players that are not in the Hall of Fame, that if Draymond Green gets in, then you better start opening the doors to Basketball Hall of Fame, man. Because like I said, if you let Draymond Green in, my goodness. But anyway, we're going to talk about that too. So shout out to the Lonely One for coming through with the super. Shout out to Top Dog again. The late 2000s and early 2010s were the last enjoyable era, in my opinion. Yeah, you see, the shout out to Top Dog. The problem with the 2010s is that it got destroyed early because of LeBron James. So, and I hate to even say that like that. Like, oh, it's LeBron James, you're just a hater. No. When we talk about the super team era, to me, when I think about the 2010s, that's what I mainly think about. Because when you talk about the transition, right, in the 2000s, then Kobe Bryant, we thought was going to continue his dominance because he was still kind of young in his early 30s in the early 2010s right there. But what ended up happening was some of the injuries derailed. Some of these other teams were there. And LeBron James himself develops his super team and destroys the balance of the game, right? We talk about the Eastern Conference and how there was no super teams in the East like that, or powerhouse teams or dynasty teams in the East. Why would LeBron James have to do this and create all of these mediocre teams in the Eastern Conference? And like I told you guys, cheating the other NBA players. Remember I did that video. We talked about how he cheated guys like Carmelo Anthony. And somehow Carmelo Anthony still acts like he's his friend, even though LeBron James fake as hell. But he cheated guys like Carmelo Anthony, cheated Dwayne Wade. Right? He cheated guys like Chris Bosh, right? Because they're not remembered the same way they should be. So he cheated these guys. He cheated Dwayne Wade of a Finals MVP in 2011. But he cheated guys like Derrick Rose, cheated guys like Paul George, right? He cheated these guys out of opportunities that they could have had, right? Some of these guys that played Jeff Teague that liked to pump them up. He cheated Jeff Teague and Paul Millsap and the Kyle Korver, the Atlanta Hawks. He cheated a lot of these teams. I mean, think about Kyrie Irving. And how Kyrie Irving's remembered. I mean, they love to crap on all of LeBron James' teammates, so everyone gets cheated to a degree. I mean, I just did a video yesterday. These clowns are now trying to say LeBron James should have won Defensive Player of the Year award in 2009. 2009. I mean, Dwight Howard was sensational. Sensational. And LeBron James never do. Like I said, when you look at the voting, it wasn't even close. And when you look at the on-court, like I said, impact, there was a reason why the Orlando Magic were the number one defensive team that season. There's a reason why Dwight Howard, led the league in rebounding as many times he did, led the league in shot blocking several seasons. I told you, like, what are we doing here, man? Like, they're trying to rob another NBA player like Dwight Howard from an accolade that he actually deserved and earned by his performance and impact on the court that season. But let's just take away from everybody and take everything away from everybody and give it to LeBron James. This is what we're doing. So the 2010s got kind of jacked up. When all that kind of stuff happened, you see, Kevin Durant going to the Warriors in 2017, and ending that really weird. Then we had Kawhi Leonard going to the Raptors for that year. I mean, that was weird. Like, I mean, what are we doing here, guys? There was a bunch of just weird things going on. And like I said, and we've kind of been in a better space as far as that goes, even though LeBron James has still attempted to manipulate these rules. We talking about the Anthony Davis. I told you, Anthony Davis saved this man. How do you request a trade? How do they allow this man, free agent, his best friend, to be the free agent of a guy that requests a trade and then ends up on his team? I mean, if Michael Jordan was doing this kinds of stuff, if this would have been how he got Scottie Pippen on his team, and then they won 6 championships, oh my goodness, the LeBron James fans would have been, I mean, that's all they would be talking about. They would have been like, yo, they got Scottie Pippen shady. They gave him Scottie Pippen. They just gave him Scottie Pippen. They just gave him to him. And then they just won all those championships. They would have been up in arms of LeBron James fans right now. They would have been trying to rewrite they've been talking all that's what happened to LeBron James that season. That's what happened. This man continues to manipulate stuff, man. So shout out to Top Dog, man. Insane. The manipulation is no bounds. Shout out to Praise the Don for coming through with the super. We need the OG panel back. Sports and Fitness Rants, AOH, Hoop God, Michael Jordan fans are the best, NMB Sports, and Scap. Yeah, shout out to all those guys that you mentioned. Yo, shout out to Praise the Don, man, for mentioning those guys. Like I said, shout out to all you guys that continue to come through. Everybody in the membership, you know, a lot of you guys, like I said, have been rolling with us for a long time, rolling with me. You know, when you mention guys like Hoop God and Michael Jordan fans are the best. Like I said, thanks to all you guys, man. Like I said, shout out to them dudes. You know, listen, man. Someone like Scap, man, Scap doing his thing, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, Scap is doing his thing. Like, I hate to even say it, but Scap too big for me. You know what I'm saying? Scap too big, man. He doing bigger things than Sports and Fitness Rants, or, you know, to come back on the Sunday channel. You know, like I said, we had some difficulties with Michael Jordan fans are the best, man. You know what I'm saying? He got jacked up, you know, up on YouTube, man. Things got jacked up, man. You know what I'm saying? It's messed up, guys, really what it is. Because they continue to try to squeeze, you know, some of the smaller channels. So even, you know, me and AOH not doing our Sunday lives, you know, over the last several weeks, you know, it's due to some of this kind of stuff, you know, things that are kind of, you know, beyond your control, you know, things that, you know, it's kind of, like I said, sad that we even do these kinds of things, because we all know, guys, how society works, man. Everyone knows that. And that's why I tell you guys, I'm not here for the money. I'm not here for the fame, you know, none of this kind of stuff. So I'm humbled by all support, but we understand, man, how this stuff works, right? And, you know, like I said, you know, when you're trying to do things and you're saying things that maybe people don't want you to say, like I said, you don't have the voice that maybe you feel like you should have, you know, people get discouraged. People don't want to, you know, put the work in or put the time in anymore, because a lot of these guys, man, they put a lot of time in. They put a lot of effort. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's hard for me to try to put myself in some of these other creators or content creators' shoes sometimes when we talk about some of the people and, you know, how the Sunday show used to be. You know, it's almost like we think about how our life used to be, right? And we say, yo, things were simpler back then, right? It was a simpler time. So it was almost like, you know, a couple of years ago when we first started coming together and I met some of these guys for the first time, it was almost like it was a simpler time where we started to make too much noise. And I'm not saying that in an arrogance type of way, or like, oh, you know, because of me or because of, but I feel like that's what happened. Because, I mean, listen, you guys know, you guys been here, you guys been around. When we used to have them panels, when we used to have some of these people coming through, I mean, we had like the Johnny Arnett's come through. Like I said, shout out to my man, the Will Chamberlain Archive, who we had come on a show with me and AOH. You know, when you're able to bring some of these other creators on here, then all of a sudden you have these, you know, people like, you know, this clown Gilbert Arenas, you know, dropping into our live stream unannounced. This is what ends up happening. People start seeing some of your content and reacting, you know, responding to some of the stuff that you're talking about. And then next thing you know, you like for me, for instance, I have people making channels with my face on it, right? So I have all these different people and, you know, people following me around. I got, you know, people stalking me, so to speak, making channels with my face. This is what comes to territory. This is what happens, right? When you start to, once again, make some noise and people start to put some respect on you. So like, and why is that? Because of you guys. You guys have shouted me out. You guys have shared my stuff. I mean, I have people telling me that they'll debate other people in whatever the topics are. And a lot of the stuff that they get is from me. They've listened to some of my content and it's allowed them to debate people in situations that they would have never been able to have done, you know, off their own. So that's the kind of stuff to me that matters. I don't care if people never donate or did the supers. And I'm not saying that I'm not thankful, because I absolutely am. And you guys know I am. But that's never what it's been about. Because, like I said, when people tell me that they got something, you know, that's it. That's what it is. Because when we're setting the record straight and we're stopping the lies and the narratives, I can't do this by myself. It's not about me out here, you know, against the world. You know what I'm saying? It's about all of us. That's why I always say, you guys, what? The true basketball fans, Real recognize real. If I wasn't real, if you guys couldn't recognize real, then there would be no situation where you guys are in the comment section and, like I said, and sharing my stuff, spreading the word. That's what it comes down to. So shout out to all those guys, man, that continue to do their thing. Like I said, people are in different places on YouTube. We've been on here at different times. Like I said, shout out to my man AOH because he's been on here a lot longer than I have. A lot longer. That's why I always shout those guys, man. Like I said, my man Too Raw for TV. Like I said, he's a legend. I would call him a legend. Too Raw for TV, man. This guy's been making content on here for over 10 years. I mean, these guys have put work in. Like I said, Ticket TV, he's OG, man. OG, triple OG. These guys been out here putting work in the streets, the YouTube streets, so to speak, for a minute. So shout out to all those guys, like I said, that have been out there doing these things. Like I said, even Charles with the Dreamers Pro. They've been making content for a minute, man. All the dudes out there. That's how you get the uncut hoops, right? You get an uncut hoops, right? He hasn't been on as long as those guys. That's how you get an Uncommon Sense, right? Who hasn't been on as long. You get a 93 Zay, right? That's how you get some of these guys. That's how they come out. Remember, I've told you guys, Jim over at Self-Research NBA Facts, he talked and we first found it. He came in the chat. That's how he came. And we told him to make a channel because he always had good comments. And he always, like I said, it was almost like you can tell that it mattered to him and that he wanted to contribute to what we were doing. So we were like, yo, you should make a channel because what you're doing, no one else is doing. Some of the angles and some of the research that he was doing individually, nobody was doing. So we told Jim to make his own channel, and the rest is history. You guys know Self-Research NBA Facts. You just say his name. You guys know who he is. And that's how he started. He came to the comment section. That's how we first met him. And that's how he created his channel. So like I said, much respect to all you guys that continue to support the channels. Like I said, it's never been about the donations or the views for me because I've suffered too. But I'm not going to, whatever, man. We're going off topic here. We go off topic here. I want to ask you guys, man, who do you guys think is the best team? What team you guys think is the best in the NBA right now? What team to you guys is the best in the NBA? Ask you guys straight up, man. You guys out there in the chat, who's the best team in the NBA right now? Right now, 15 games into the season, a month into the season, you know what I'm saying? Who's the best NBA team? You guys let me know. We're going to get some of the LeBron James stuff, Lakers stuff in a little bit. I see a lot of you guys saying OKC. Yeah, the Thunder. A lot of you guys saying by miles. Armand Smith, he's liking how Detroit's looking at. Shout out to the Detroit Pistons for real. Like I said, a lot of you guys, Oklahoma City, the Thunder, right? The Thunder, the Denver Nuggets. Okay, so shout out once again. Shout out to Level Up Media. I think OKC and the Denver Nuggets. I'm liking the Denver Nuggets. Listen, man, I know you guys, some of you guys out there get mad at some of my Nikola Jokic stuff, but Nikola Jokic's a great player, man. I've never said he wasn't a great player. And that dude is doing his thing, man. So once again, whenever you have Nikola Jokic on your team, to me, the Denver Nuggets are going to be a dangerous team as long as he's there. So, yeah, I think the Denver Nuggets are a really good team. But, yeah, I think a lot of you guys are on the money here with the Oklahoma City stuff. Because I was thinking, man, like who are the powerhouse teams? Like right now, yeah, okay, if we expanded, a lot of you guys think Oklahoma City, then let's say we expanded it to who are the top 3 teams in the NBA, guys. Just in the NBA, the top 3 teams, Eastern Western Conference. Who do you guys believe the top 3 teams are? Do you guys think the top 3 teams all come from the West? That's right, Nuggets versus OKC. You think Nuggets versus OKC in the Western Conference Finals, Chip Ferguson. That would be a really crazy one. Remember, they matched up last season also, the Nuggets and OKC. So I think those teams are definitely on a collision course again. The Pistons, you guys think the Pistons are a top 3 team? Yeah, I can see the Pistons right now. Like I said, a month into the season, the Detroit Pistons, I tell you, Jalen Duren looks amazing out there. I mean, the athleticism on the glass is amazing right now. Like I said, his development. Cade Cunningham, like I said, we know what Cade Cunningham's about. We need the rest of his cast to kind of get onto his level and help him out. Isaiah Stewart's been really good, like I said, helping them out, being that one of those role players. So these guys have really made some noise. Like I said, that they won again last night, so that's what was 12 games in a row of the Detroit Pistons. So I think, OKC, the Denver Nuggets, the Pistons. Yeah, what about the Rockets? You guys think the Rockets are right there? I like the Houston Rockets. I've been giving Kevin Durant a lot of flack. You guys, I mess with Kevin Durant, and I talk about him riding the bus. But make no mistakes about it. Like I said, if Kevin Durant is going to be Kevin Durant, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, when you going to be that dude? If Kevin Durant's going to be that guy in a playoff scenario and all of those pieces are there, then the Houston Rockets are going to be a scary team, man. Because like I said, Kevin Durant can make shots, right? That's what he does. He makes shots. And the Houston Rockets have talent on that team. Like I said, to me, I believe in the coach, right? I believe in someone like Udoka. I believe that he can have these guys prepared in a playoff scenario when you're talking about game planning for a team. So I think the Houston Rockets could definitely be a team. But like I said, it's up to Kevin Durant. Is he going to be that dude or he's going to ride the bus and average 25? That's not going to get it done against the Denver Nuggets. That's not going to get it done against OKC Thunder, man. Kevin Durant's going to have to be, like, I'm talking about, he's going to be that guy. He's not going to be able to sit back and let Amen Thompson outscore him or Sengun. Like, he can't let these guys just lead the way. He's going to have to be that guy in those moments making them shots, man. I see some of you guys, the Orlando Magic, a young team in the East. Shout out to some of those dudes. Does anyone believe in a team like we talk about the Pistons. Like, to me, like, the thing with the New York Knicks. Like, the New York Knicks, remember, coming into this season, the New York Knicks were supposed to be the heavy favorite in the East. Does anyone believe that the New York Knicks are still the heavy favorite in the East right now? With the way the Pistons look, the Cleveland Cavaliers still look like a very decent team, right? So, to me, the Knicks have underachieved to a degree. Shout out to my man, Dakota LaRee for mentioning Chicago Bulls. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that OKC and the Denver Nuggets, they might be the top teams right now. I think the Houston Rockets, the Detroit Pistons, I think they're kind of right there. Like I said, I think a team, I mean, listen, I just don't know if I believe in some of these guys because, like I said, are they going to be there when it matters most? Are they going to be there on the court? You know, like, I just don't know about this stuff. You think about a team like the Sixers. Like, what are the Sixers going to look like? Because you have Joel Embiid on a weird minutes restriction. I don't know what his thing is that he's got. They got Paul George trying to work his way back into form. To me, that might be making you worse, right? So, really, what are we talking about here? We're talking about the top teams in the league. Like, how many true contenders do we really have when you really sit down and think about it? How many true contenders? Are the Miami Heat going to be a team that's going to make some noise? How about the Toronto Raptors? The Toronto Raptors have, been a kind of a surprise so far this season where they are, like I said, a month into the season. So we think about some of these teams. The Toronto Raptors, to me, are a team where they don't have necessarily a superstar, but they have a bunch of really good players, a bunch of, young players, guys that can do things. So when we talk about some of these teams, think about the Indiana Pacers. Like, Halliburton's out for the season, right? We know Halliburton's situation. The Pacers are one of the worst teams. Like, I mean, they got all kinds of situations or problems on that team, man. With guys in and out of the lineup. Like I said, some of these teams, when you look at the New Orleans Pelicans, they've lost like multiple games by 30-plus points. Zion Williamson is never on the court. They got guys in and out of the lineup. The Washington Wizards are historically bad. You know what I'm saying? The Hornets are bad again. LaMelo Ball's in and out of the lineup. So, I mean, like what the hell? It's like, the Warriors, to me, I've been a little disappointed in the Warriors. I'm a little disappointed in Steph Curry over the last week or two. Because Steph Curry, to me, is playing games. He's lollygagging out there. And the Warriors without Steph Curry are a hot mess. Like, if Steph Curry don't play, Draymond Green don't want to play, no one else can really do anything. That's why I always tell you guys, like, Steph Curry needs to be that dude, right? The San Antonio Spurs, for me, they started off really hot. They were 5-0. They came back down to earth a little bit. Victor Wembanyama, right, dealing with some injuries right now. He's out. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, are guys going to be there? Is Victor Wembanyama going to be there? Is he going to be a dude that's going to come back and get, like, you need a rhythm going into a playoff. Right? I know we're away from that. But during the season, you don't want to be a guy. Like, this is what some of these guys do. Like, when you're playing like 65, 70 games, and that means that you're always missing a game or two here and there. That's no way to go about the season. You're never really in a rhythm, in a flow sometimes, so to speak. Physically, some of this stuff, you're out here for a week. You're out there for a week. I mean, like I said, look at LeBron James. He comes back to play the Utah Jazz, and then now you're off for 4 days or whatever it is. So really, what was the point of you coming back for Utah if you're going to be off for 4 days? That's not necessarily helping you stay in a rhythm condition-wise. Is it? Was it really doing that? No. You just want to get that Utah Jazz game in, right? It's weird stuff, like I said, from LeBron James and how some of this stuff goes. The Dallas Mavericks, to me, they've been a little bit down of this season, the Dallas Mavericks, right? With Anthony Davis, we get it, right? Anthony Davis, he does this stuff sometimes, right? He's not there. Cooper Flag hasn't, he's a rookie, right? He's up and down. He's here and there and everywhere, right? So, the Dallas Mavericks got some issues going on. They fired the general manager right there. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you just threw a match or a grenade into that organization. So the Dallas Mavericks, the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't know. So, Anthony Edwards is doing Anthony Edwards things. 10, 13 threes a game. I mean, the man continues to just chuck up threes over and over and over and over again. One of the most athletic players in the history of the game, Anthony Edwards, and yet the man's never done a slam dunk contest, and the man continues to go out there and chuck up the damn threes. Come on, man. Insane. You got Jaylen Brown, the Celtics, rubbing his hair all over everyone's uniform. I mean, what are we doing out here right now in the NBA? It's crazy to me when you think about some of these players, some of the stuff. It's like, come on, man. The Memphis Grizzlies, the John Morant. This dude's a clown. John Morant? Dude, you've been in the league how many years? Yo, we're still trying to treat John Morant like he's a rookie? Like, this dude's an idiot. He's a certified idiot. John Morant's a certified fool. I'm telling you guys right now, when we talk about being raised by grown men, and I tell you guys to carry yourself and to try to carry yourself, right, with some of this stuff, the principles, right, the values, the integrity, the honor, class, earning respect. If you're thinking about earning respect from people, if that's your goal, if that's your mindset, just think about this stuff. Think about these things. Look it up in a dictionary. See what it means. Understand it. Talk to somebody. Right? Look and watch. Observe people. There are grown men around you, fools. And these guys never notice them. They don't see what they're doing. John Morant's father's a fool. I've done a video on that clown. All right? So once again, we go back to who you're raised by. And I'm talking about John Morant. I'm saying that he's not a rookie anymore. Dude, you haven't learned from your mistakes? You're still doing the same stupid stuff. Like I mentioned, just last night, this fool's out for whatever the reasons, and he's trash talking with Klay Thompson after the game, in a game that he didn't even play in. So you got energy to go back and forth with Klay Thompson on the sideline, but you ain't got no energy to play the game. Dude, you're a fool. Come on, man. But where are the Memphis Grizzlies? They're nowhere. Like I said, the Knicks have been inconsistent. The Brooklyn Nets are trash. Russell Westbrook is on the freaking Kings, who are getting blown out almost every night, even though shout out to the Kings because they beat the Nuggets last night. So shout out to Westbrook. He must have took it personal against the Nuggets. But damn, they're like, what, they got 5 wins? Like I said, they've lost by 30. I think they lost by 40 one night, the Kings. So the NBA seasons have been crazy with some of these teams, man. But yeah, I'm going to give it to the OKC Thunder as the best team in the NBA. Who do you guys think is the best player in the NBA right now? The best player in the NBA. Who do you guys think the best player in the league is right now? Like I said, a month into the season, guys. Who's the best player in the league right now? SGA, Nikola Jokic, I see you guys. Yo, shout out to Machiavelli to Don. Shout out to you. Cameron MCOC, what up, man? Jokic or Giannis? Okay. Yo, Birdman, what up? Good morning. Shout out to you. Yeah, who do you guys think the best player in the league is right now in the NBA? Right now. You guys say, a lot of you guys say Nikola Jokic, I see. I see a lot of SGA. Nikola Jokic or SGA. We got a Cade out here. Shout out to Laney Music 8990. Doing more with less. I like that. That's a good point you brought up here. And I think if we think about what he's doing on the team, some of these guys that have been in and out of the lineup, Cade Cunningham has been doing his thing over there. I said Detroit Pistons are a huge surprise in the NBA. I said they're one of the really good stories in the NBA, in spite of the things that I said, about some of the blowouts, and we talked about the load managing some of these fools and some of these guys. But the Detroit Pistons, I said they're a bright spot on the NBA this season. I think, I know some of you guys were talking about Victor Wembanyama early in the season. Shout out to Andrew Music 9921. What's good, man? Shout out to you. Yeah, I would probably have to go with Nikola Jokic as the best player right now in the NBA. I think what he's doing, what he has been doing, in the NBA over the last several years, is nothing short of spectacular. You got my only problem has been, my problem has mostly been with Nikola Jokic's fans and how they cover him and some of the things that they say about him. I told you they've been becoming more like LeBron James fans over the last year or two. But as my problem has been when they compare him historically to some of the other great centers, that's where they start to lose me when we go down that road. Because, like I've said, because of the era that he's playing in, it really doesn't allow me to put him above a lot of those great big men that played in some of these big men heavy eras with some of the legit guys. But he's definitely, to me, been the best player. I think what SGA has been doing this season has also been really sensational in the sense that we mentioned earlier, as far as how he's doing. Now, I want to more or less maybe because they have a really good team. But remember, Jalen Williams hasn't played a single game yet, and they've still been very formidable. They've been excellent, the Thunder, right? They haven't been a letdown or any of this time. I mean, think about it. They're the defending champion. Everyone's giving you their best shot. Everyone's coming at you. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no more surprising people anymore. Oh, it's the Thunder. They surprised us. No, it's a freaking Thunder. And they've been out here dominating teams. I mean, blowing teams out so much so that a guy like SGA, another reason why I've highlighted him this season, is he's been able to sit out several of these fourth quarters because the Thunder have blown out some of these teams. So when you talk about load managing, I told you, SGA's figured out how to load manage, right, quote unquote, load manage the right way. Sitting out fourth quarters, not stat chasing, not stat padding. When the Thunder are up heavy at the end of these games. I told you, at one point during the season, in the first, 9 or 10 games this season, SGA had sat out 4 or 5 of the fourth quarters. At one point, he sat out 3 or 4 consecutive fourth quarters. And remind you, he had 30 points in 3 quarters in all these games. So he could have went in there and tried to get 40. He could have chased 50. He could have tried to do those kinds of things. The things that we've seen LeBron James do. He could have done stuff like that, right? Stat chase and stat pad, but SGA wasn't doing that. Like I told you, Chet Holmgren has missed several games. Lou Dort was out for several games. So these are 3 starters that SGA and the Thunder have been without, and they've still been the best dominant team, like I said, on both sides of the ball so far, like I said, a month into the season. So SGA has a great argument for the best player in the league over Nikola Jokic, because I really believe it's them in the conversations. And maybe you could say Giannis, because Giannis does not really have a lot to work with when you think about some of the guys. Like, who's his most consistent teammate? Kyle Kuzma over there, because Miles Turner, to me, hasn't been that great on that team. So he's out there playing with guys, and he has to deal with Doc Rivers and some of the weird things that he does. So shout out to those guys and what they've done. Like I said, Nikola Jokic, SGA, with the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets, who me, are a title contending team because of Nikola Jokic. That's why, because of him. You know what I'm saying? The Thunder, to me, even how great and how deep they are, if you take SGA off the team, to me, they're not a title contending team without SGA. So what he's been able to do this season, and he plays defense, SGA. So shout out to him. Nikola Jokic, as I said, Luka Doncic, to me, I can't put him up there with those guys. To me, the Lakers are a good team. They're a good team, but they're not a title contending team. And Luka Doncic, man, he's a big baby. To me, I know we knock SGA and we talk about SGA, and I've watched some of his games, and he does get a little demonstrative with his reactions right out there, SGA. But to me, it's nowhere pales in comparison to what I see Luka Doncic do out there on the court. I mean, my God, this guy's always crying. He's always like this with the referees on the side, looking like this. Dude, just stop it. And when you watch a lot of what Luka Doncic does, he's throwing guys, he's using his arm, he's doing the LeBron James, and then he's crying about it. It's just really annoying. So I'm not putting Luka Doncic up there with them dudes. Like I said, it would have to be probably like a Jokic, SGA, Giannis type of thing for me as the best player in the league right now. So once again, shout out to all you guys that put down Nikola Jokic. You guys know the deal, man. Like I said. But yeah, and like I said, man, once again, shout out to Giannis out there, Giannis Antetokounmpo, man. Because sometimes, like I said, I don't know, man. How much, like I said, you out there with Kyle Kuzma, man. You know what I'm saying? Remember, Kyle Kuzma is known and remembered for pushing LeBron James in the back, right? Right? That's what he's known for. Now, when we're talking about this, I want to go into this Draymond Green thing real quickly, man. We talk about the Draymond Green stuff because the response I heard from Draymond Green to Kenyon Martin was really weird to me, because it's like what he said. Draymond, see, this is the thing. He didn't deny it. See, sometimes when we talk about the things that we're talking in some of these videos, and, we might make jokes, or it might seem like we're making a joke, right? Kenyon Martin is making a joke, not making a joke, but he's making a joke of Draymond Green, right? And he's saying and highlighting, listen, I can name all of these players that are greater than you at your position. And, I heard, the man, he had a piece of paper. He had a whole piece of paper. Both sides, it seemed like, of names. And he mentioned some really good names. Players that people forgot about. Guys like Antonio McDyess. Like, you forget about someone like these guys. Even like a Glenn Robinson or Joe Smith. You forget about some of these guys that played back in the day. But what it also highlights is the facts of the matter, right? The actuality, right? That Draymond Green's nowhere close to when you think about some of these players. Like, that's what we say. Like, if you let him in the Hall of Fame, then all of a sudden you're like, yo, there's a lot of guys you gotta let in, man. If you think about some of the names that he mentioned on the list, remember, he wasn't doing like a Hall of Fame or Hall of Famers or not Hall of Famers. He was just naming guys that were better than him all time at that position. And he named like 60 dudes. When you think about just some of the guys on the list that he mentioned that are not in the Hall of Fame, if you put Draymond Green in, like I said, it almost takes the roof off the Basketball Hall of Fame. It almost just opens it up for so many people, so many conversations now. Mark Aguirre, like, are you kidding me? Draymond Green wasn't greater than Mark Aguirre? Come on, Rolando Blackman, Bill Lane Beer. All of a sudden, I said Amari Stoudemire's not in the Hall of Fame. Sean Kemp. Larry Nance. Like I said, all of a sudden now, you're like, yo, hold up. Tom Chambers, Kevin Johnson, who I always mention. You start opening the door to a whole bunch of dudes. Shout out to my man 20K, Rasheed Wallace. Yo, shout out to all you guys. Cali Young, Buck Williams. Yo, I told you, it gets dangerous. It gets weird. It gets really weird. Because like I said, there are so many guys that were way better than Draymond Green. I'm talking about way better. These guys are not close, guys. There were guys that are close to Draymond Green. Close, right? You're like, oh, yeah, But some of these guys I just mentioned, they're way better than Draymond Green, guys. Oh, Draymond Green, the Warriors. He was a defensive guy, and he was a playmaker, and he did. Man, I told you guys, what Draymond Green is, he's the definition of a system player. Yes, Draymond Green, a really good defensive player. No doubt about it, man, because that's what he did. It's the only thing he could do. That's where he made his claim. He was a hustle guy, right? The guy that's supposed to be one of your solid role players. He's supposed to be a quote-unquote glue guy, a Draymond Green, but he ended up being the opposite of a quote-unquote glue guy because more often than not, he's getting technical fouls. He's kicking people in the groin. He's getting ejected in the fouls in a game 5. He's doing everything to jack you up. The Warriors, Steph Curry, won despite Draymond Green. More often than not, this dude was doing something stupid, but he didn't have the game to back it up. He wasn't Dennis Rodman. So when we talk about these kinds of things, these players, light years above, like I said, someone like Draymond Green, like I said, just think about someone like Larry Johnson. We all know Larry Johnson had injuries, but Anthony Hardaway's not in the Hall of Fame. Anthony Hardaway, I was like, yo, I didn't even realize that. I thought he was. I was like, yeah, everyone's definitely a Hall of Famer, and I get it, the injuries, but if Anthony Hardaway's not in the Hall of Fame, there's no way in hell Draymond Green should be in there. That's insane. Anthony Hardaway's one of the great players. Injuries be damned. Come on, man. Once again, we're not doing a service for the NBA's history then. It doesn't make any sense. Once again, shout out to all you guys out there that are mentioning these players. Shout out to you, Jerome Ransom. Shout out AC Green. A true Iron Man of the sport. So, now, getting back to what Draymond Green said. In response to all of that. That's a lot. You guys saw the list. He put the list out. A whole list out. It was official. Draymond Green, once again, didn't deny that because he knows he can't touch or shine the shoes of most everybody that Kenyon Martin put out on that list. There were some guys he started making jokes about, like Popeye Jones and some of this stuff. I think he mentioned some of those guys. We could debate some of that stuff, but Draymond Green made it about him and his personal resume versus Kenyon Martin's resume on paper and how he's beneath him. So he's basically saying, in the response I heard, basically saying, you're not on my level to even talk to me because your career, you underachieved in your career versus me. You were nowhere on the level of me and what I achieved and accomplished in my career. That's the angle that he took, which to me was laughable when you think about Draymond Green, the way he speaks to Charles Barkley or the way he spoke to Charles Barkley in the past when they've interacted. he talks with so much disgust and disrespect to a guy, a player, Charles Barkley, who is light years apart from a Draymond Green. Draymond Green has no business talking to a Charles Barkley like that, but he felt the need and felt that he could because of some championships he won, riding the coattails of Draymond, of Steph Curry and Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson. These dudes, stop it right now. All right, so don't come at Kenyon Martin and say, dude, your resume is nothing compared to my resume. That's insane. He mentioned Kenyon Martin never making an all-defensive team. Like, this is what we're doing now, Draymond Green. Kenyon Martin never made an all-defensive team. He mentioned Kenyon Martin only making one all-star team, he said. And I started laughing once again. Because Kenyon Martin wasn't talking about how great he was. And once again, Kenyon Martin was a solid player. He was a good player. He had a lot of injuries. Once again, Kenyon Martin was a guy who was derailed through injuries, all these problems. But he was never a punk. He was never a soft player. He wasn't a guy, like I said, who ran his mouth to a degree where you see Draymond Green, the talent's not there. The game is not there. He talked about Kenyon Martin being a high draft pick, right? And not living up to the hype, so to speak. Once again, we have to mention the injuries for someone like Kenyon Martin. But Kenyon Martin wasn't talking about how great he was. He was talking about how not great Draymond Green was compared to a lot of the great players at that position. For him to speak, once again, for him to speak the way that he's speaking. When you think about, like I said, let's think about Kenyon Martin's game real quick. If we just talk about what Kenyon Martin did on the basketball court. Like I said, I was a New Jersey Nets guy. I live in the New York area, right? In New York, so I'm in the New Jersey area. So I used to get the New Jersey Nets games on my TV all the time. So I remember watching a lot of Jason Kidd, like Kerry Kittles. I remember me and my brother being in the Garden State Mall in Jersey. Right? It was me and my brother. We was there with my mother, and we're coming down the escalator, and right in front of us on the escalator is Kerry Kittles, right? And we're going down the escalator. He's right there in front of us, and my brother leans over to me, and he's like, yo, is that Kerry Kittles? And I was like, I think so, man. Like, and we're from behind him. And it's one of those things where it's like, yo, I'm not trying to bother nobody, and you know what I'm saying, approach people. He's in the mall, and Kerry Kittles was one of those basketball players where he can go in the mall like that and no one's going to really recognize him, right? No one's going to say, hey, man, it's Kerry Kittles, and people are going to come flocking over and be like, oh, give me your autograph. But, you know, we didn't approach him. We let him go about his business. But it was definitely Kerry Kittles, man. But I remember watching all these guys. And Kenyon Martin was a guy who was tenacious, all right? His attitude was that. He was a rude dude out there on the basketball court, which is why I always kind of liked him on the Nets. Like I said, he had that tenacity, that ferocity when he went to the rim, right? When Jason Kidd would throw those alley-oops up, he would try to tear the rim off. So you'd have a scenario where you have Jason Kidd running the break and Richard Jefferson on one wing, Kenyon Martin on the other wing. Maybe Kerry Kittles, is the trailer, or Kenyon Martin is the trailer, and Jefferson and Kittles on the wing. I mean, these guys were sensational. It was a great thing to watch in that early 2000s New Jersey Nets with Kenyon Martin, man. But Kenyon Martin was a hellified rebounder as compared to a Draymond Green. Draymond Green can't rebound. You know what I'm saying? And Kenyon Martin was a solid rebounder. And say he was a greater athlete than a Draymond Green. Much greater athlete. And to me, he was better, obviously, offensively, better around the rim. He had a nice little game around the rim, Kenyon Martin. Like I said, the injuries derailed him. He's never really developed into anything, Kenyon Martin. Like I said, due to these injuries and some of these other kinds of things. But when you talk about Draymond Green and you're trying to make it about your resume compared to Kenyon Martin, as if you are the leader of the championship teams, like you were the guy carrying the team and leading the team, like, dude, stop it. I mean, my goodness, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe that he went with that angle when you disrespected Charles Barkley to no end. I mean, my goodness, the things in the way that you talked to Charles Barkley is insane. Once again, people trying to trash Charles Barkley because he never won a championship. Yeah, you know why? Because he played in an era with the game's greatest player, right? In an era where it was really competitive. How many guys won? I tell you, it's like when they say, oh, Will Chamberlain only won 2 championships or only won 1 championship in the 60s. Who the hell else was winning championships? There was no one else winning anything. I mean, I don't get it. They act like everybody was winning except for Will Chamberlain. Everybody won. Oscar Robertson won, right? Everybody was winning, man. Right? Jerry West was winning. Everybody was winning. Bob Pettit was winning all these championships. Because Will Chamberlain couldn't win. Like, damn. I mean, Charles Barkley played it once again. Charles Barkley didn't have the privilege of playing in the finals against a Michael Jordan who's going to choke it up, right? And give you a championship, right? A lot of great players are champions or won championships because the other team's great player didn't bring it. Man, they didn't bring it. Whether they played down a level, they choked it up, whatever the case may be, man. They didn't bring it. Michael Jordan always brought it. So when these guys played against him, it wasn't a scenario where you're like, yeah, Michael Jordan didn't really bring it, right? He was kind of like regular, right? Michael Jordan always raised it in the postseason. That was the thing. Not every great player in those moments always raised it. Maybe they were just regular, right? Maybe they were down. That wasn't Michael Jordan, guys. No matter what you say, that can't be denied. So these guys didn't have that privilege. When Michael Jordan had the flu game against the Jazz in 97 with the series tied 2 games apiece, guys, John Stockton and Karl Malone didn't have the privilege of Michael Jordan be like, yo, I'm going to sit this one out, y'all. You guys got that. Pippen got it. Right? Pippen's the man. Yo, Scotty, you take this game, man. I'm going to sit this one out. You got my back, right? No, Jordan showed up. But not only did Jordan show up, the man dropped 39. He dropped 39. And remember, close him out. Like, this is what Jordan did. So once again, Stockton and Malone, they had the privilege of being like, yo, Michael Jordan didn't have it that night. They go up 3-2. No, instead they go down 3-2 in Utah. Everything was on their side. And the man still came through in the clutch. So once again, they didn't have a scenario like that. You know, some of these other dudes, they don't get this stuff. They want to try to trash Charles Barkley. So whatever with Draymond Green. Now, let's talk about some of the stuff I saw on AOH's channel, the last couple of videos he's dropped. Once again, shout out to AOH. Let's talk about some of his LeBron James stuff real quickly. Because he put some video footage out of LeBron James in the first quarter and the second quarter so far. If you haven't checked it out, hilarious video footage of LeBron James in that game against the Utah Jazz. So I definitely wanted to mention some of that stuff because you guys know the deal, man. We talked about that game. Like I said, they had 40 free throws to the Utah Jazz 18. And like I said, AOH has put out 2 videos. He did a first quarter review. And he did a second quarter review that he just put out yesterday. And some of the stuff that he had in that second quarter, I'm telling you, this stuff is laughable. Laughable. I'm not making this stuff up. What you see from LeBron James on the basketball court, guys, in a lot of these scenarios is embarrassing. Embarrassing. You see LeBron James doing the Velociraptor, like AOH calls it, on the defensive end. He's just standing there with his hands like this, right? He's just standing there like this. Remember, he's getting ready to wipe his hands. He's always in this scenario, right? Or he's getting ready for this. So that's why his hand's always in that area. He's getting ready to do one of these. But there was a scenario there where LeBron James, shout out to my man Bookmark for coming through. There was a scenario where LeBron James, right, towards the end of the last video that he just did, where LeBron James did a typical LeBron James thing. He drives the lane hard because this is what LeBron James does, right? He uses his physicality to get into the lane. Then he goes up for a shot. However, a defender comes over and attempts to try to swipe at the ball, right? The guy makes contact with the ball. LeBron James goes under and up. And what does LeBron James do? He yells, hey! He screams, hey! That's what he yells out. So what happens? In turn, the whistle is blown. So after all of this, they blow the whistle, right? LeBron James yells, hey. He gets hit. They review the play. And the referee turns it over. They overturn the call. AOH is blown away by the moment. I couldn't believe it either. They actually overturned the call, right? And then basically the referee says, due to lack of contact, there was nobody getting contacted. So LeBron James is yelling, hey. LeBron James is once again carrying on and moaning and all this stuff in a game when there is no contact. And this is one of the reasons why we've highlighted many times on this channel that LeBron James wouldn't be able to play in some of these other eras. How could he when he carries on like that? Yo, shout out to some of you guys if you sent in some of these supers, man. I'm sorry, guys. Damn, if I forgot to read your supers off, guys. Let me get back to some of this stuff, guys. Shout out to the real Donald Trump 1646. Thank you for coming through. Says if Angel Reese had Draymond Green's skill set, she would be cut from the WNBA. You know, once again, hold on, everybody. The WNBA has been taking a lot of flack from the NBA players, I've noticed. And listen, guys, once again, shout out to the real Donald Trump for coming through the super. Like I said, shout out to all you guys, man, that come through the supers and just the comments, the interactions. I post the polls, any of this stuff, man. You guys, like I said, you guys are always there. But I've noticed that the WNBA, a lot of the NBA players have been coming at the WNBA. And I know I'm kind of rambling on right off topic here. We'll get back to a second. But I saw something from, I've seen a couple things from Michael Porter Jr. He's been really going after the WNBA players, basically saying that, him in high school, he could beat the WNBA player when he was in high school. And he was telling stories about how he did this. I saw a clip of Lonzo Ball and his brother, I think LiAngelo. I think I saw them, I think they have a podcast. And they were talking about them in high school beating WNBA players. And Lonzo Ball was talking about how, in high school, he was 6'6" and he was dunking and these girls wouldn't have been able to stop him, blah, 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 and all sorts of stuff. And I don't want to go down the road here and talk about that as far as the validity of those comments. But to me, what was funny and interesting is that I don't know why NBA players think it's funny to compare themselves to women. To me, it's getting weird. Like, are we really bragging about beating women in sports now? This is what we're doing now as professional athletes? You guys are freaking pros, and you're laughing about beating on women when you were in high school. Like, oh, yeah, I would have whooped their ass. If I was in high school, I was better than them. This is what we're doing now. Like, I just thought it was weird. Because, like I said, I think this is a theme now. I saw Jason Williams. I've done some videos on Jason Williams recently. He made some comments about how, once again, in high school, his high school basketball team would beat the WNBA All-Star team, he said. He said his high school basketball team would beat the WNBA All-Star team. Now, I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not here to debate that weird stuff. But I will say that Randy Moss was on his high school basketball team. I think a lot of us understand this. A lot of these guys were great athletes. Once again, these professional athletes, right? So Jason Williams and Randy Moss in high school, they were sensational. I've seen the video footage a long time ago. Like I said, I remember I was following Randy Moss' a career when he was young. When I was like I said, in school and stuff like that. Randy Moss was sensational, man. But he was saying all this kind of stuff. So when I think about that, I'm like, damn, why are all these guys talking about what they could do to women? Like, is that making them feel good? Like, oh yeah, we whip these women's asses. I just thought it was weird because it's almost like when you hear the NBA players talk about how when they talk down to the fans, right? They'll say, oh, I'll come to your rec league and run shop on you guys. I'll come to your YMCA league, or I'll come to your little gym league, or I'll come to this league over here and we'll beat you guys. You guys are bragging about going to a rec league with regular everyday people where the average height might be 5'8" and running shop down there. Like, I'm laughing at this stuff. Like, that, what are we bragging? Like, it's like bragging about being the smartest kid with Down syndrome. Like, what the hell are you bragging about? That's nothing to brag about, man. It doesn't make any sense. Like, can we live in reality here? Like, and like I said, when I'm hearing Lonzo Ball say this, dude, you're always hurt. So, like, you're talking about beating women, but you can't even stay in the court, dude. So if I was a woman, I would just kick you in your knee or something like that, or I'd bang into you, and you would crumble into nothingness. It's almost like you would be like when Marvin the Martian would hit you with the disintegrating gun, and you would just turn to powder. That would be Lonzo Ball. I don't care if it's a woman or otherwise. Dude, you soft as hell. But you're talking about beating on women when in high school. I trashed these girls. Dude, stop it, man. Stop. My goodness. Anyway, let's get back to the LeBron James stuff to me. Because like I said, when Airways was putting that video footage out, this man's fighting for calls. I mean, my goodness. It was laughable. Like I said, he goes, hey. This is what you see. This is the video footage that Airways is putting out there, guys. I'm not lying about this. I'm not embellishing on this. I'm not finagling it. No one's editing this video footage. This is nonsense going on out there that you see from LeBron James, man. And once again, they called the foul. Yo, they called the foul. That's crazy, man. Come on, man. Stop that. That's insane. They called the foul. And then they reviewed it and was like, so what had happened was no one hit this dude, actually. We just called foul because he yelled, hey. I'm telling you, man, when you watch some of his video footage, Luka Doncic, I'm telling you, he's not exempt from this either. I mean, some of this stuff was egregious. So you guys need to check out Airways, the video he just put out recently, second quarter, Utah Jazz versus the Lakers. Because one of the things that was interesting in the game that Airways mentions is, see, guys, here's the thing. When we talk about the free throws, right? Yo, once again, shout out to all you guys, man. Like I said, that come through, once again, support the lives, guys. It means a lot for real, man. When we talk about the free throw stuff, there's one thing that I want to make, or make a distinction that I want to make that AOH made in the video. We all know how basketball is played, right? We understand how organized basketball is played. I've told you guys, street ball, organized ball, two completely different things. If you've played both, you understand that, right? So when you're playing basketball, right, organized basketball, you're playing in an actual league like the NBA, the professional league. There are certain rules. So one of the rules, right, one of the things in basketball is called getting into the bonus, right? So what happens when you play basketball? For every quarter you play, you're only allowed a certain amount of fouls per your team, right? 5 fouls or 6 fouls, whatever it is, until you're in the bonus. So in a lot of these games that the Lakers play, it's not only that you're like, oh, they shot X amount of more free throws than this team. A lot of times the reason for that is because they get into the bonus early in a quarter. And why is this? When you look at the video footage of that Utah Jazz game, that AOH, this is from the second quarter alone. The Utah Jazz looked like they were handily beating the LA Lakers. The Lakers looked worse with LeBron James on the court, did they not, guys? They looked worse. They looked slower. They looked discombobulated. I don't want to hear any excuses because, once again, they were telling us that LeBron James is so great. He's going to seamlessly fit right in. But they were down early in that game. So in the second quarter, what AOH pointed out and highlighted beautifully is that they were able to close the gap on the Utah Jazz, not by outplaying the Utah Jazz, but by simply getting into the bonus early in the second quarter. And why was that? Because they were getting calls that were not shooting fouls, but you're getting all of these calls, and then all of a sudden, every foul becomes a shooting foul. So when you look at the video footage, they were calling fouls on the Utah Jazz guys for playing defense, essentially, guys, in some of these plays, some of these calls. Like I said, they called the foul and then rescinded it on LeBron James. But there were scenarios there where LeBron James went to the hole. No one touched him. He's initiating the contact, and they blow the whistle, right? Luka Doncic is doing this. Austin Reeves. These guys are getting fouls. They're getting foul calls, moving screens, they're saying, or guys, moving their feet, blocking calls, all this weird stuff, which puts the Utah Jazz in the bonus early in the quarter. So now, all of a sudden, everything's a foul. This guy goes here, whistle, 2 shots. This guy does this, whistle, 2 shots. So you didn't get shooting fouls, right? But you shot fouls because of those fouls, because you're in the bonus. So this was one of the things that I think he pointed out and highlighted beautifully that happens oftentimes for the Los Angeles Lakers over the last several years that LeBron James has been there. When we talk about teams, the starting lineup you'll see from the other team, right, being in foul trouble early for no reason, all these BS fouls. It doesn't make any sense, guys. You guys know the deal. Shout out to you guys. I see someone came through. Shout out to Neptune 4359 coming through with the super. Like I said, thank you very much, guys. You guys truly humbling me when you guys come through, man. Hey, Robin, off topic, but Bill from Self Research NBA Facts has been continuing the trend of talking down on Bill Russell's teammates to prop up Russell. Can you set the record straight on these lies? Yeah, once again, shout out to Neptune 4359. I talked about. That's so funny you bring that up because remember I mentioned that it talked about Bill Russell's teammates. And remember, there's never anything off topic whenever I'm doing my lives because you guys know my channel. I just ramble on, man. I rant on here, I rant on there. We change topics drastically. I change suddenly. I do a pivot 180. I come back full circle on something else, right? It hits it right back to somewhere square one. So you know how I do. So it's never off topic when you're talking about sports and fitness rants. But when you think about what you just said, that was what I had a problem with when we talk about that clown from the Legends of Winning. Remember, he was trying to trash Bill Russell's teammates and trash their Hall of Fame status, right? Just so that he could lift up Bill Russell. And listen, I told you guys, to me, Bill Russell is easily a top 10 player in the history of the game. I know sometimes people say that he's not top 10. I've seen people say that he's not top 20 or something like that. I mean, it's whatever. But I think it's clearly a top 10 player in the history of the game. But I've also said, if you think that Bill Russell is the greatest player of all time, I don't think that's a crazy statement. I don't think that's wrong. I don't think he's not worthy of that status. I think Bill Russell and the things that he did in the game, what he meant to the game, like I said, his overall resume, absolutely, like I said, he deserves to be looked at and viewed that way. His teammates, however, some of these guys, like you said, have been shortchanged so they can lift up Bill Russell And I think some of this has to do with the Michael Jordan stuff, right? Because they love to put up like Bill Russell as a guy that competes with Michael Jordan somehow, but doesn't compete with LeBron James. Like, it's weird. I told you guys, a LeBron James fan told me one time that it's funny. It was a laugh that I didn't have LeBron James top 10 because he's a 4-time champion and a 4-time MVP winner. They said I'm a joke just off of that because he's a 4-time champion, 4-time MVP. You have a top 10, it's a joke. So I'm a joke. But these same people will tell you Bill Russell's not top 10 when he's a 10-time champion, right? Or 11-time champion, excuse me, and then a 5-time MVP. So you tell me which one is better when you just say it that way. He's a 4-time champion, 4-time MVP. Well, Bill Russell's a 11-time champion and then a 5-time MVP. I think people forget that Bill Russell has 5 MVPs and that he's won 3 in a row. But they also, once again, don't want to put no shine on Bill Russell's teammates, like I said, because a lot of these people don't know. So, like I said, they'll just look at these guys. Like I told you, the guy Legend of Winning, he said that, what's in that? He pointed out 2 players in particular. But it was funny. He cherry-picked 2 players in particular to say that they were Hall of Famers only because of Bill Russell, not because of their own games. And he highlighted Casey Jones, and I'm trying to remember the other player that he mentioned. I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe Frank Ramsey, I want to say. He mentioned and questioned their Hall of Fame status. And I laughed and I said, of all the players that Bill Russell played with, the great teammates that he had, you mentioned those 2 guys? Those are the 2 guys that you mentioned, Legend Winning. It's an absolute joke. I said these guys are cherry-picking stuff because he was trying to create a narrative, and he was trying to fit that narrative. So there's only, but think about it. If you have a narrative, you can't give all the facts. You can't talk factually or historically accurate about this stuff because your narrative's only going to allow you to say a certain thing. So he's trashing these guys and trying to lower them down by saying, oh, look at they never won until Bill Russell got there. And I said, yes, we can all say, and we all understand, Bill Russell's the Celtics' best player. He was their best player. No one's arguing that these guys were better than Bill Russell, greater than Bill Russell. No one's arguing that. There's no one that argues Bob Cousy over Bill Russell all time. No one argues John Havlicek over Bill Russell all time. No one's arguing Bill Sharman or any of these guys over him all time. None of these guys. What they're saying is that those guys were great in and of themselves. And what we're talking about when they say they didn't win until Bill Russell got there, that's because of A, Bill Russell is freaking great like that. I mean, like, what are we doing? Like, we're stating the obvious. Yes, you add Bill Russell to your team, one of the greatest players, arguably the greatest defensive player in the history of the game. Obviously, it's going to do something to your team. Is it not? Yes, it is. But we also have to put some respect on the other great teams and the other great players that were in the league before Bill Russell got there. So they laugh at Bob Cousy, right? Or someone like Bill Sharman for not winning before Bill Russell got there, right? Well, then we have to mention guys like, what's his name? I had a brain fart there. We have to mention guys like George Mikan. We have to mention the Minneapolis Lakers in the 50s. There was a dynasty there. So some of these other great players, you're going against other great players and great teams. Bob Pettit was in the league, right? His team was, the Hawks were a tough team to beat, right? The New York Knicks were a really good team in the 50s, right? They were the Syracuse Nationals with Dolph Schayes. I mean, you had really good teams. So just because the Celtics weren't winning championships, it doesn't mean the teammates were trash. And then all of a sudden, they just magically won with Bill Russell there. They were the number 1 offensive team before Bill Russell got there. They weren't that great defensively. That's when Bill Russell comes in. You see what that dynamic there? Bang. So once again, we can't knock them dudes down because Bill Russell, they won when he got there, right? Because it's funny to me that, they'll try to make the argument for like a Scottie Pippen, right? And they'll say that, oh, Michael Jordan only won when Scottie Pippen got there. That's not an accurate description. It's the same thing with Bill Russell. We can't just say, oh, they won only because of Bill Russell or when he got there. Yes, you're adding Bill Russell to a already really good team. Go look at the Celtics. They were getting beat by some of the best teams. They were in the playoffs. They weren't winning like 10 games, 15 games. They were in the playoffs every year. They were getting knocked out by teams. Like people trying to make Bob Cousy was the Houdini of the hardwood, not because of Bill Russell. I mean, John Havlicek. Come on, man. Remember, the Celtics won 2 championships in the 70s. after Bill Russell retired. They were formidable after he retired. They had one season where they were under 500, 1 year, the year after he retired. After that, they were a formidable team in the 70s with guys like John Havlicek and JoJo White and Dave Cowens. You had that Casey Jones, the guy that they were knocking, was the head coach of these teams. Like, it baffles me, like I said, how they'll celebrate some players' teammates, right? And they won't celebrate others because it doesn't fit the narrative, guys. I'm giving you all the facts here. You can feel how you want to feel about it. It doesn't matter. There's the truth. These are the facts about these players. Like I said, I don't get anything by lying about that. But these guys, like I said, have continued to try to knock some of these great players just so they can create and lift the dude up, just so it fits a conversation. Because if you put Bill Russell up against LeBron James, and I say, yeah, well, I think Bill Russell's greater than LeBron James, which I do, then the LeBron James fans will turn around and they'll trash Bill Russell, and then they'll pump up his teammates, right? And then they'll say, oh, his teammates are this or his teammates are that. It's like now you want to pump the teammates up before you wanted to tear them down because you wanted to pump up Bill Russell to make him be greater than Michael Jordan. So that's what I'm saying. Like, they can't remain consistent. That's why I told you guys, whenever you debate LeBron James versus Michael Jordan, right? Or LeBron James fan, they have to bring up Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Will Chamberlain, Bill Russell. They bring up everybody. They have to bring up all these guys to debate against Jordan. It doesn't make sense. We're talking about Jordan versus LeBron James. It doesn't have to be a greatest of all time debate. We're just debating LeBron versus Jordan. That's it. Who was greater? And when you go through the resumes and you start to make points, like I said, even if you just say simply, well, let's say you had a debate or you're having a conversation with one of these guys. It's a conversation about who you thought was a greater player. And you just simply said this. Michael Jordan has more MVPs. He won more MVPs than LeBron James in his career. That's one reason why I think he's greater. Let's say you said that, right? I think everyone understands it. That's a great statement to make. He won more MVPs during his career. So in this comparison between these players, that's what I think Michael's greater than LeBron James because he won more MVPs. That's one reason. They'll turn around and say, yeah, well, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar won 6, so that means he's greater than Michael Jordan. We're not talking about Michael Jordan versus Kareem Abdul-Jabbar because if I was debating Michael Jordan versus Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, then I wouldn't say Michael Jordan has more MVPs than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's why I think he's greater because he doesn't. I would make a different argument. I would say something else, right? I would say he has more finals MVPs than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's what I would say. You say the debate, the argument depends on who you're debating against. You're arguing against, right? So once again, we mentioned championships in a conversation. It's not the A-all, B-all. That we're like, oh, Michael Jordan has 6 championships. That's only the reason why he's greater than LeBron James. That's one of the reasons why. And they'll say, well, Bill Russell has 11, so then he must be the greatest of all time. No, we're talking about in comparison to LeBron James. I'm saying Michael Jordan has 6 championships, 2 three-peats. That's the conversation that we're talking about right now compared to LeBron James, who has no 3-peats and 4 championships, right? So don't talk to me about Bill Russell. Don't bring him up. He has nothing to do with this. Because once again, if I was having a conversation with Bill Russell or debate against a Bill Russell fan for who I thought was a greater player, then I wouldn't say Michael Jordan has more championships than Bill Russell. Maybe I would say Michael Jordan has 2 three-peats in the modern era. No one's been able to do this, right? Maybe I'll say that Michael has the most championships in the modern era. No one's been able to do this, right? You go and you make a different argument. There's a different thing that you say, a different angle that you come with against different players. These guys don't seem to get that. They want to argue LeBron James, right, against Michael Jordan, but they want to bring everybody else behind LeBron James. They want to bring all the guys in the background for their conversation, for their debate. Yeah, well, what about this guy? They'll bring up Kobe. Like what are you guys talking about, right? It doesn't make it, like, they're trying to bring up all these competition stuff. Oh, he played against this dude and that. Like, there's no way you can make an argument based off of competition and think you're going to beat Michael Jordan's competition. You can't do that. That's asinine. That's insane. That lets me know you didn't grow up watching the 80s and the 90s because the competition was fierce. Fierce. That's why Michael was respected and felt the way that he's felt about because of all those damn great players that were in the era. They were like, damn, Charles Barkley couldn't get a championship. Patrick Ewing, Reggie Miller, John Stockton, Karl Malone. It was like, damn, why? They used to knock Hakeem Olajuwon. Not knock him, but people would say, yeah, Hakeem Olajuwon won when Jordan was there. They would say that. like I said, it wasn't to like take away from Hakeem Olajuwon. It was more so to give Michael Jordan respect. It was almost like, yo, you know Jordan was there. Y'all probably wouldn't win them championships, man. Come on, man. Like, that's what it was more so about. It wasn't necessarily to knock those guys and say that their championship weren't legit, or they didn't earn it, or that Hakeem wasn't a great player, or the Rockets weren't a great team, because they were, right? And those were legit championships. You talk about those runs, sensational. But people used to say that, yeah, because Jordan wasn't there. Because that was a reputation that he earned. That was the greatness, and that was the domination that he had at that point. It was almost like, yo, no one was going to beat him. He beat himself almost. Like we talk about, oh, Mike Jordan could have won 8. That's, people are not saying that because we're just, oh, you're just a Jordan nut hugger. You would say he could have won 8 in a row. People think that because he made you believe that was possible. 2 3-peats. I mean, the man came back and just won again. So when you talk about that, that's what makes that a believable statement. He could have won this many, right? So once again, these are the facts. I know I rambled on and on and on that one. Man, I want to thank you guys for real, man, because I know I've been rambling on for like 2 hours here, and you guys have been rolling with me during this live stream. You guys have interacted with me. I think we've come to some good conclusions here. I think Nicole Yoke's probably the best player in the league. I think we came to a conclusion there, right? I think everybody agrees on that. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder are the best team in the league. I think, like a lot of you guys said, there are some contenders. I like the Nuggets. I like the Thunder. I like the Pistons. I like the Rockets. To me, they're the best teams, I think, right now. The Cavaliers are not really sold on to it. The Knicks, to me, are kind of a letdown. The Raptors, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Golden State Warriors, the Lakers, some of the teams I'm not really sold on. So I think that was those are some of the top teams, I think, right now, right? We talked about the load managing, the blowouts, right? The 30, 40-point games that we've seen this season, completely out of hand. The guys dropping 40 and 50 points. So once again, does anyone believe that Michael Jordan couldn't average 40 easily in this era? This is no disrespect to the era. That's not a disrespectful statement. That's the reality that we see. That's what we see out there. You see Michael Jordan clearly being able to average 40 in this era. I don't think anyone can deny this. I mean, come on, man. Like I said, when you have these kinds of guys dropping the numbers that they're dropping on a nightly basis, with the foul calls that are being given out there, I mean, like I said, it's crazy, guys. Like I said, we talk about even the Lakers individually, and like I said, LeBron James coming back for the Lakers when they're off for like 4 days. That's pretty funny to me. LeBron James coming back. Thought I heard something. Yeah. Anyway, sorry guys, I heard something. So yeah, I mean, he's coming back. He got 4 days off. Like, that was weird to me. So it's always something with LeBron James, man. Like I said, man, shout out to all you guys, man. I'm gonna end the live stream. I've been rambling on, man. Like I said, thank you for all you guys who came through with the supers. Shout out to my man coming through right now. Illinois Gaming 420504 with the super. Thank you very much. You dropped so much knowledge. Thank you, Rob. No, thank you very much. So shout out to Illinois Gaming. Always coming through. You've hit me up before. So once again, thank you very much. It means a lot. Like I said, that means a lot to me right there, man. Like I said, when you guys say that, I'm giving you some knowledge, or like I said, I'm giving you guys something that you can, I'm saying, that tangible, something you can take home. Like I said, that you can hold on to. Like I said, you can spread the knowledge. And like I said, maybe you're having a conversation or debate with somebody out there. Like I said, maybe you just want to know something, right? Because I told you, the difference now seems to me to be when I was growing up and we would watch the TV. And I told you, when I was growing up, we only had like one TV in my house. So like, if my dad's watching basketball, like, you're watching basketball. Like, there's no like, oh, my son wants to watch this, or this person's over here and my daughter's in a room watching that. Like, it wasn't like that. I know we all didn't grow up the same and stuff like that, but TVs wasn't like that back in the day. For a lot of people, for most people, TVs wasn't like that. Like I said, it just wasn't. Now everyone's got TVs, and it just seems like it's not even a big deal anymore. But anyway, when you watch the game, right? And they would show you a clip of like Will Chamberlain, like they would show you the old black and white films of like a Bob Cousy, right? They would show you these guys, Jerry West. I told you, like, the reason we knew about them is because people talked about them. Right? We always bring up Huey Brown. A lot of these guys, Marv Albert, Mike Fratello, like when I listen to these guys, they brought these guys' names up. Michael Jordan himself brought up Oscar Robertson, Jerry West. So you're in your mind, when I see the video of Bob Cousy dribbling like this, And in my mind, I'm not laughing at him when I was seeing this, right? As a 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old. I'm not laughing at Bob Cousy. In my mind, I'm asking, why is Bob Cousy dribbling like this? Why? Not ha, 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 ha. Look at him. He's a dork. He's a white dude. That's not what I thought. A lot of people, we wondered why. We want to know why he dribbled like this. So if you follow someone like the Will Chamberlain archive, a true historian of the game, I don't consider myself a historian of the game. He's a true historian of the game. He explains and breaks it down to as to why Bob Cousy and the other players dribbled this way. There's a reason. So we don't laugh and mock them and be like, oh, I could have played in the NBA back then. They're just plumbers and taxi cab drivers. They're just slow, unathletic white dudes. Oh, I'll cook them. I'll drop 60 on this dude's head. And we talk about these dudes that way. No. Once again, they're pioneers of a sport. And we should be wondering why they went that way so that we can learn about the game. If you don't ask why, then you're not going to learn. Because you're not going to want to understand. You're just going to want to laugh at these guys and think you're right. So like I said, when Bob Cousy comes out and speaks up on behalf of his era, because J.J. Redick is calling them plumbers, and he says, oh, Bob Cousy can't dribble with his left hand. No, that's not true. Go learn and understand and study and figure out and find out about Bob Cousy. He can dribble both hands. He was a wizard with the basketball, man. But you're going to try to reduce him down to some dude that can't dribble, like your local grocery store bagger, or some dude that works at the 7-Eleven? Like, what are we doing right now? No, he's just playing against. And like I said, the ultimate slap in the face is when they mention these guys having to work blue-collar jobs as if somehow that should be beneath anybody out in the world. That's insane, guys. Remember, I want you guys to understand, we're going to end it on this, man. Remember out there in the world, man, there's a lot of other people out there busting their butt, man, working for nothing, man, that they have to go to work every day. I'm telling you, man, I tell you guys all the time, I live check to check. I don't say that for sympathy. I don't say that so you guys feel bad for me and donate money. I say that so you understand that I'm right there with y'all, man. I'm right there with y'all, man. These are the facts out here. And for people to talk and make fun about these dudes because they had to work jobs, regular. Think about that. That's insane. This is what we're teaching the kids out there, to laugh at grown men who played professional basketball and in the off-season had to work jobs to support themselves and their families. Let's make fun of these great men. Holy hell. This is where we are. That's insane. We're making fun of these guys. I told you, a lot of these dudes fought in a freaking war, man. They served in the Army, in the Marine Corps, in the Korean War. We're laughing at them now. They never bring them dudes up, though, right? Oh, they're plumbers. He's a taxi cab driver. Try driving a taxi cab in New York City. I'm sure that ain't easy, man. Are you kidding me? And all of a sudden now plumbers are a bad thing? Yo, man, once again, if my son came up to me and was like, yo, Dad, I want to go to trade school and learn to be a plumber, man, I tell him, like, yo, man, that's a good skill to learn, dude. You're going to have work. There's always going to be some work. There's pipes everywhere. There's always someone that needs to call you up. There's always something being done, man. Don't ever let these people talk down on people who work every day, hard-working jobs, man. People go out there and earn it every day, man. Don't let them talk to people like that. That's insane, man. That don't make no sense. I told you my dad worked for the MTA, man. MTA for like 30 years. Overtime. I see my dad for days sometimes. It's crazy how we talk down to people who went out there and put the work in and balled out in the basketball court at the same time. That's crazy, man. I had to walk off right there, man. That's insane. Yo, I think I seen some supers. Damn, you guys hit me with the supers, man. I was gonna stop the live. But you guys came through. The difference between shout out to McZuggins. The difference between these fools and every era they claim to be better than is that none of those eras needed to spam us with how great they were. Shout out to McZuggins, man. Right on the money. Right on the money. I told you, all they had to do was show up to work. And them dudes show up to work. That's what they did, man. It's crazy. Yo, shout out to Austin Casey 937. First live stream I was able to catch in a while. I thank you. No, I thank you too, man. Austin Casey, true support. Like I said, shout out to you guys that are in the membership out there. It means a lot, guys, that you guys continue to come through and support my live streams. Like I said, I hope I didn't miss anyone's supers. I think I mentioned, I read you guys all the supers off for real, man. It's crazy. Yeah, so like I said, man, I don't understand how we make fun of, like I said, regular, everyday, hardworking people, you know, as if it's beneath people to put in a hard day's work. That shouldn't be beneath anybody. It should not be beneath anyone. So once again, shout out to all you guys, man, that continue to come through the live streams, man. It means a lot. Like I said, a lot of us were lucky, man. Like I said, we grew up watching. Maybe some of you guys were before me. You watched some of these guys in the 70s, maybe. So shout out to all those great players, the professionals that came out and said they gave the effort, that showed to work. Like I said, that was a minimum they could do for us, man. Shout out to all you guys, man. Like I said, they continue to come through. You know what I'm saying? It means a lot. And like I said, shout out to my man AOH. Like I said, it was just me today. I hope we can get the Sundays going up again. Me and the Czar. It's been tough right now for us. So like I said, thank you very much to all you guys out there. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday, man. And you guys know the deal, man. You guys know the deal. I'll catch you guys on the next one, man. You guys know that.